Good afternoon. My name is James Vann, and I'm one of the attorneys here at Vann Attorneys. We are so thankful that you have taken time to participate with us with this webinar. We're going to be talking about creditors' rights in 2022. So hopefully this will be helpful to you, and hopefully it'll be helpful in your thinking about what you're doing and how your team is working. But if you have questions, you may submit them a couple of different ways. One is you can use the control panel on the screen to submit your questions. And then the other one would be if you could use an email. If you want to do it that way, you can certainly do it that way. And the web address or email address is webinar@vannattorneys.com. So we have a question that came in early, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. So again, you can send it a couple different ways. So some of the things that we're going to be talking about today is creditors' rights in 2022, and also what's different in collecting past due accounts this year, right? And then we'll talk about some best practices going forward, and hopefully they can help you. So again, that's sort of where we're going to get started today. So the issue that we're going to be looking at, or issues we're looking at, are today some businesses have changed how they do business, right? Most everybody has probably changed something since COVID. Whether they're working remotely, we're working some remotely. Technology has certainly, I think, increased a lot since then. We have a whole lot more technology probably at our fingertips than we did 2 years ago. That's some great things, right? Some workers are going to remain remote. I understand. I've been reading a lot of articles, talking to a lot of clients. And other business leaders having to do with real estate and office space. A lot of folks are going to stay remote or either be back and forth remote, right? There are new opportunities for businesses to figure out how they're doing business. And a lot of, I know we were doing webinars for years now, but think about how many webinars you've done, think about how many video conferences you've done, and I know a lot of folks have had way too many. But again, technology use has grown. You're able to do a whole lot more as a creditor by use of technology than we did, say, 4 years ago. How we communicate with our customers has changed, right? I'll never forget, obviously, when a lot of you remember faxes, right? And I know still maybe still do some of that. But how we communicate with customers and others has changed. It's gone from faxes and mail to email and now text, and maybe I think some of y'all know have internal portals where clients or your customers can communicate with you that way as well. A whole lot less phone usage now than it used to be. Some of us are a little sad about that, and I'm one of those. I love talking with people on the phone, because I feel like if we can build a rapport, right, then we can move the ball forward and hopefully get paid, getting the money coming in. Emails, text, that kind of stuff. In my mind, and for me, right, I really want to talk to people on the phone to be able to see them or talk to them. If we can see them by video conference, that's probably even better. But again, we're doing a lot less phone, right? More email, more text. We're having increase in cost for materials and labor. That's an impact for a lot of us as well as for our customers. I was talking to a customer just recently, or a client just recently, and their customer who owes them a fair amount of money. I was asking, like, what's going on in your business? I mean, your business industry is booming, right? Why are you struggling? Why have you not paid our client? And his answer was, James, he said, it's cash flow. And I'm like, what do you mean cash flow? His cash was tied up because of material shortages and labor cost increase, and it's tanking him, right? I'm like, wow. And he unfortunately did not have the ability to go borrow more money to help bridge those two gaps. Also, many companies are reporting slower pay now from their customers. I was talking to a client, I think it was yesterday, as we were putting the final touches on this presentation today. And I asked, how things going, and this particular client said, my numbers are going up, right? The AR is going up. Didn't know why yet. I've talked to several clients this past week trying to get ready for this webinar, and I'm hearing the same thing. Some companies are reporting slower pay. Now, again, it's not across the board. It's just a handful, but it's causing their numbers and their reports to go up. So one of the questions that we got in is, do you recommend a demand letter before sending an account to your attorney? I do. I think it's a great idea, right? Send a demand letter. That is where our client sends the demand letter. And the reason I think that's important, and I'd love to see a statistical analysis of it. I feel like you probably get some results out of those. You may not get, obviously, if it's 50%, man, that's awesome, right? It also sort of says, hey, look, we've reached a point where we're getting ready to raise the stakes a little bit if we don't get paid. I think sending it is a great thing, right? Do you, the client, need to send it certified mail? I think legally, no, right? You don't have to legally, but I think it raises the level of importance, if you will, in the mind of your customer. Could you do it by email? Absolutely. I think you can do it by email. In North Carolina and many of the other states, that we're all adjusting our rules of civil procedure about how we can do different things with technology today, right? So email has just really sort of entered many of the states, certainly North Carolina, in being able to communicate with opposing counsel. We still can't serve most things by email legally. We have to still do it certified mail, share for some other processes. But you think about how much email we're using today. So could you do a demand letter by email? Absolutely. And I think it's a great idea to do that. So thank you for that question. So what's different today in collecting past due accounts? So I hear this all over the place, right? Customers are so busy, they are slow to process their payments. And I think to some extent that's probably true. They are so busy, right? In many industries, certainly in the commercial, in the building sectors, folks are busy, right? Technology sectors, folks are busy. Even a lot of the retail, maybe not the brick and mortar retail, but thankfully most folks are pretty busy. Now, restaurant industry, I guess they're cranking up, they're getting back, but they're still having some challenges. But the folks are so busy that sometimes they're just slow at getting payments out. This client that I spoke with yesterday said, again, the AR is going up, and she said, some of these people have been long-term clients. They owe a lot of money, and one little thing is out of kilter, and they're saying, I'm not going to pay you because I'm not happy about that. All right, is that really a AR issue? Is that a customer service issue? Is it a delay tactic? I don't know. But I know we're hearing that from several different clients. Some customers are also so busy, and the supply chain is hurting their cash flow. We mentioned that just a moment ago. And I truly think that's hitting a lot of businesses pretty significantly. And their cash is just tied up, right? They're having to upfront, if they order something, it may take 60, 90 days, but they're having to pay a part of it before they get it. And they're not getting it from their customer. So that's certainly an issue. I know that's an issue for a couple of clients with their customers, and we're helping try to work through that, right? The rising cost of goods is starting to impact purchases. I was just talking with a client a few minutes ago before we jumped on the webinar, and the person they dealt with entered into a contract, I guess it was 2020, I think, 2021, and they had a flat fee contract. Well, prices in this industry were going skyrocketing during that time period, and the person on the other end of the contract kept saying, hey, I can't do this because the prices are going up. They had some other issues going on in their contract, but this is starting to come to a head in that one issue. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on. But that certainly is creating an issue for that situation and for those two parties, right? Labor costs, labor shortages, all of those things are impacting customers today. And I think that's going to impact how quickly people pay or how slow they pay. I know a lot of times folks can't find skilled labor to do a whole host of stuff, right? I talked to a client this week. They were sharing with me, this is a creditor, right? And they have, it's a large corporation, large company, privately owned, and they've had some people who have gone out for different reasons, legitimately, and then decided not to come back to work. And they're scrambling. They're trying to figure out how do they increase their skilled labor back to where they were, right? And this is going to impact their accounts receivable because these people are making phone calls, right? So those are some issues that are going on. As we talked about earlier, transition to remote work. I started to put in some poll questions, but quite frankly, wasn't sure how to make it easy to understand and to be able to vote on. But most remote workers, I think, are working hard, and things are moving forward. But it's amazing how that slows the process. It seems to slow the process down. Even though people are remote, phone calls are working, video conferences are working, emails are working, whatever it may be, or how the communication is, but it seems to still slow it down some. So again, remote work is an issue. Staff turnover, we've sort of talked about it, but both for your customers, but maybe even for your own business, but certainly for our customers, staff turnover is an issue, right? I know people that are leaving the jobs and not going back in the workforce, and some are leaving because they're getting a better offer in another industry, dollar-wise, right? So again, depending on where you are geographically, that might be an issue, right, with your customers. They may, their office staff may be leaving for whatever reason and not coming back, right? The other thing which I thought has been really interesting, we've talked to a lot of folks over the last year, the abundance of cash in the business-to-business model in the market has, without a doubt, played a fairly important role, I think, in collection, right? So most people, when cash gets tight, problems rise up, right? If there's an abundance of cash out there, you might hear some rumbling, I don't like something, I'm not happy about something, but when they get pressed, the cash shows up. I think that's still going on, I think, to some extent. Because again, even the guy I talked about a minute ago who his cash flow was getting crushed because of supply chain problems, he's got a steady amount of cash coming in on his work, but it's just getting tight. He's just got to figure out how to manage that a little bit better. But there's still an abundance of cash in the marketplace. It'll be interesting to see what 2022 does as far as just the business model. So I was talking to a group of people this morning, business owners this morning, and we were talking about what how the stock market, what's it based off of, right? It's confidence in the marketplace, whatever is going on. And they were saying basically it's one step shy of a major problem. If there's something that goes on in the world or something with our country, confidence goes down, the market goes down, and how tentative that can be. And that's true, right? I mean, it really is, and everything we do really is based off of confidence, right? How confident are we that things are going to continue in a strong economy? So again, just gives you something to think about, right? Not to be a Debbie Downer by any means, right? Because I know a lot of folks are thankfully incredibly busy, and hopefully the profit margins stay up, which they should, right? So let's talk about some best practices that you can use. One of the things I wanted to mention, I didn't put it in the slide, so I apologize, is not to let if you have like lien rights or other protections go by, for your accounts or your customers, right? If you've got some legal protection, don't let those slip by, right? Because down the road, that may create a problem for you. Just as an encouragement, right? Don't let those slip by. So using the information that you have, right? You want to leverage that to your advantage, right? And the data that you already have. Do you need to collect more data on your customers, right? A lot of you I know get a lot of data, which is really good. Are you using that, right? Can you make sure that you can access and have access to that information and data no matter where you are, right? Thankfully today, that's a whole lot easier than it may have been 10 years ago. I've got a client that's a really well organized company, but they hadn't invested in technology much before COVID. And of course, the credit department always gets it last, it seems like, you know. But at the same time, they thankfully have invested in technology. So regardless of where they are, thankfully, the credit team and the financial team can look at information, they can look at reports, they can contact their customers remotely or wherever they may be, right? So make sure that you can leverage that and use that wherever you are. And then what behavior patterns do you see from your customer regarding payment, right? Can you start looking at the payment history with your customers, start looking for trends. Look at aging reports. They can show you a lot of useful information. I've done a lot of reading over the last year about aging reports and just how that stuff works and what you can learn from it, right? The more, and thankfully, we're all computerized today, use that to your advantage, right? Can you see a sector of your business? But again, you got to make sure that you can look at the technology and information you have. Can you look at your aging reports and tell in this particular sector, we've seen this change or that change, whatever it may be. So we would encourage you to see if you can use the information you already have and look for patterns with the information, hopefully the software that you already have. Are calls, emails, texts necessary to get payment, right? And sometimes you can look, you might be able to remember, right? I know some of you on here have great memory and you've been in the game a long time. Making phone calls, right, still hopefully is beneficial. You can hopefully get people. With caller ID is a plus and a curse, right? If they see you calling and they don't want to hear from you, they just miss the call, right? Are emails or text message more effective in getting the payment or getting the attention or the correspondence going, communication going with your customer? And some of those things, just look for that, right? Or you may know, if I need to call this client every month, or I need to talk to them every other month, and payment comes in when I start talking to them. So what do forecast and reports for your business indicate for your cash flow? Those are some things to really look for, right? How's your company doing with digitizing the AR process, right? What needs to change? How can it improve? This should improve the efficiency of delivering invoices and accelerating payment. That's what it's all about, right? You're trying to reduce your cost, get your money in faster. It helps the overall profitability of your company, certainly the financial strength of your business, right? So if you are, and I think most of y'all are, I know some of you are still working towards making that more of a digital process, but the more you can get there, right? And I think it should help, right, to make payment. I've been reading a lot of this lately about electronic payments, right? What's that going to do business to business? It's going to be hard to get away from checks, I think. Business is probably going to be the last, I think, which is interesting. I know few people now are writing checks compared to using credit cards or making electronic payments. And I know without a doubt, statistics tell us that businesses are making more electronic payments today than they were 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So again, making that AR process easy for your customer is really key, right? There's a reduction of cost and also hopefully an increase of benefit for you. And do your customers have the ability to pay electronically? I know a lot of you, I think probably most everybody on the call probably has that ability, right? And if not, consider that, right? You still have the folks that go, no, I'll put a check in the mail. And that may be how they do it, right? And if that happens, you want to say how, when, and what's the consistency? How's that going to happen? Make sure that you understand when the check's going to be in the mail, how much is it going to be, when you mail it to me, what address are you using, that kind of stuff. If you're using a lot box, that's, you need to make sure they understand where that's going to go. So those are some things that we would encourage you, right? And I wish I could remember this lady's name, who did communication with your customer. She used to do a lot of seminars with NACM and other organizations, and she was really good about communication. And most of you know, right, communication with anybody is so important, but certainly with your customer. And I guarantee you probably know the top 3 or top 5 perfect paying customers, and probably the top 3 or 5 problem childs, right? communication with your customer is really key, right? Such an important part of collecting is just having that relationship. Touch base often with the customer, especially if they're behind. You want to make sure that we are touching base with them, right? Ask for payment and timing, as we said. When's the payment going to be made? How is it going to be made? Can we pick it up, right? Thankfully, COVID we think is all going away. Can we pick up the payment versus having it put in the mail? I don't know about you, but I'm gonna tell you the mail process, and I'm not knocking the U.S. Postal System or their employees, but it has struggled. I know a lot of clients, and we are struggling trying to get stuff through the mail, right? Can we pick it up or have it overnighted, right? Get the details and then follow up, because it really does matter, right? Make sure that you have that consistency in touching base with the customer. And even maybe, hey, send them an email or text, got your check, thank you so much, or got your payment, however it came in, thank you so much. It just creates that communication and that connection with your customer. Because, thankfully, I think most of us have learned you don't have to be the knee buster and threatening to get the payment. A lot of times it's the relationship factor that really makes the big difference. So I hope that helps, right? If y'all have questions, please feel free to send those to us by email or call me. Either way, whatever's easier for you. And again, we hope this is helpful to you. I'm just checking to make sure we don't have any other questions. I don't see any. But if you have some, please reach out to us. And I would also encourage you, if you have a topic that you want us to cover in the webinars, please send those to us as well. I really do appreciate that. That's very helpful. In fact, a lot of the ideas that we get for webinars come from you. So thank you. And again, we thank you so much for trusting us and for dialing in with us today. We hope you have an awesome week.